am I recording with all of the Psychic Frog decks in my queue? Because I think it might get banned at the end of the month. Uh, to that I say... Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video. And today we are going to be playing with essentially a, discard land, Wasteland, soft prison deck list. Despite the fact that it's going to have Psychic Frog in it, it's not going to feel very much like a blue deck. So this one comes from Ike, and this is the original deck list, and it's going to need some love. The general idea is solid. Build around Psychic Frog and things that get value from the graveyard. Bring back your Vengevines, bring back your Uros, put lands into the graveyard that you can go and return with your other creatures, and as cards go to your graveyard, one of your premier threats can get bigger and bigger and bigger. So what are the problems with this deck list that I'm going to need to solve? Because this one was a tier 3 donation deck list, meaning that the donor knew that it needed some work. The biggest problem, I think, is that this card is not going to trigger. It sounds super cool in theory to discard Vengevines with Psychic Frog and then bring them back immediately. But I want you to look at the mana value of the creatures in this deck. This is technically a 3, sometimes a 4. This is 3, this is 2, this is 1. So it's not like we are playing a Delver-style deck list where you can go and just play Psychic Frog on 2, double 1-drop on turn 3, return 2 Vengevines, and effectively be attacking for lethal. That's just not going to happen. So either the Vengevines need to go, or the deck needs to be rebuilt with a very large number of 1-drops to make Vengevine work. If we go down the hypothetical where we're not going to play Vengevine, Careful Study does not make sense anymore, right? The average Legacy deck does not want to play a Careful Study or even a Faithless Looting effect. It is just not a good Magic card unless you are doing something busted with it. Think about your Dredge and other graveyard-based combos sort of things. And so that's probably giving us around 8 cards to work with. I'm going to try to respect most of the rest of the core of the deck list here and try to build this bug mid-range deck with some amount of graveyard-based synergy. And I'm going to respect the donor's wishes to not play Force of Will in game 1 and have that in the sideboard. That might make sense here. In terms of deck building theory, the Psychic Frog that is backed by a pile of counterspells tends to be better than the Psychic Frog that is not backed up by that pile of counterspells. So in Psychic Frog mirrors, we'll probably be at a disadvantage, but hey, maybe we will, ignore some Cavernous Souls. Maybe we will have one fewer card to get caught by a Vexing Bauble, that sort of stuff. Just in case you aren't familiar with these cards, Deeproot Wayfinder is sort of interesting. When it deals combat damage to a player or battle, surveil 1, then you can return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Obvious thing to do with that is recur Wasteland again and again and again and again. And then 6, when it attacks, you mill 3 cards. You can put a land from among those cards into your hand, and during your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace, meaning that you can discard a land card in addition to paying their other costs. So this is our way to recur all of our creatures, not our removal here unless we get real weird and, start going down the Pernicious Deed route or something like that. So this is what I ended up with as the core of the deck list. And the first thing that I wanted to do was make sure that we had enough removal in the deck list. So let's pull this stuff to the side and just kind of talk about it. It's sort of a weird spread, and it's not one that I'm sure is correct. The spread that I am playing here hedges against Psychic Frog specifically. I want Psychic Frog dead. I can't back up my removal spells with Force of Wills in game 1. And I want Psychic Frog dead. I want Spider-Man, that sort of energy, okay? So that's why we are on these, Abrupt Decays and Fatal Pushes that are highly efficient or uncounterable. And I wanted to have a few answers to 2020 Merit Lages in the deck. I've been seeing more and more Dark Depths on Magic Online as just something that is a little tough to answer. This gives me 3 main deck outs to those. Now, this removal suite is not perfect. This is not Swords to Plowshares dot control deck, right? We don't get to just cleanly answer Psychic Frog and Murktide Regent and Thought Seer and everything at the same time. We have to make real choices here for the most part, unless we play less efficient removal spells. I think some degree of efficiency is important. So I've got some flexibility in here. I have some uncounterability here. We could maybe flip-flop these two, and then I only have 2 answers to Merit Lage, but I'm a little better against Murktide. We could go that route. That's not the worst. It gives me 2 things to dig for. Yeah, I think I like it. And I have snuck 1 Life from the Loam into the deck list. We are a relatively land-heavy deck list to start with. We could probably cut 1 land, maybe cut 2 lands from this deck list as it currently stands. Life from the Loam is real good with Psychic Frog. If I'm going to be in green, I really need a strong reason to be in green, and I think the synergy between Life from the Loam and Psychic Frog is just great. So you Life from the Loam, you put 3 things in your hand, you discard them to Psychic Frog, and then Psychic Frog draws a card, dredges the Life from the Loam, and you can just kind of repeat that process again and again and again and again. As far as the sideboard goes, I've been pretty impressed seeing Consigned to Memory on the other side of the battlefield. It's not exactly Stifle, but it's close, and it gains the ability to counter colorless spells, which really matters in the metagame right now. Eldrazi is becoming more and more and more of a threat. Last thing I want to do here is cover some of the things that I considered for the deck, but ultimately didn't quite make the cut. I think Witherbloom Command is really solid. I think this is a card that very much could be in the deck list, but this comes at the cost of maybe the Life from the Loam or one of the Abrupt Decays, and I want to keep the creature ratio of the original deck the same. I'm already taking out the Vengevines, so I want to keep a core portion of the Donor's deck intact, and I think this... I don't want to touch the creature base beyond getting rid of the Vengevines. Now, if you want to play a Vengevine version of this deck list, I think Nethergoyf is probably a good 1-drop that you can slot into this deck. I considered this. If you want to play more controlling like what I am playing, I think Borrowgoyf is also reasonable. It's a big death touchy, lifelinky body that can put more cards into graveyards. I was a little unsure how much tension I could put on my graveyard with already having like a bunch of things that are messing with the graveyard. Opponents might be boarding in Graveyard Hate against me, and leaning further into my graveyard might not be the best idea. This one does count all graveyards, whereas Nethergoyf only counts your own. But these were kind of the other things that were on my mind as I was working with this deck list. So yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the league here. Folks, should you need some cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. That's Tales of Adventure. They have 95% of standard legal stuff in stock at any given time. They have awesome cards from the early ages of Magic, your power, your dual lands, all that stuff. And hey, who doesn't like saving money on expensive cards? If you use promo code ThrabenU, you will save 5% on your order while you do that. Let's bug out. So this game is going to come down to, is Wasteland a good card in this matchup? If the answer is yes, I probably win this one. And if the answer is no, I probably lose this one. Like if my opponent just comes out here rocking basic mountain, we're done. It's over. Otherwise, we have a very heavy mana disruption plan going on here. I think this is going to be worth a Surveil land. Get blue-black to pair with Forest. Drop for that matter. Fatal Push. Very unsure about the value of Fatal Push right now versus Flooded Strand. Like, if this is just a blue-white control deck of some kind, this card is not strong. If my opponent is going to play a Psychic Frog, this is a very, very, very good card to have. I think I'm going to take this. It just does something different that the other cards in my hand don't currently do. And I think I will play the non-basic here and jam this. Whether or not I daze to protect it is sort of interesting. Well, I don't need to find out immediately. But we'll see if we're just going to get a Swords of Plowshares pointed at my creature or something. I think I daze. Try to get value, or just do untapped land. I think I just take the untapped land back to hand. My sequencing over a couple of turns might get a little weird if this is still going to be some deck that plays an aggressive 2-drop. Stoneforge Mystic comes to mind. I would like to be able to Fatal Push that immediately while also doing Wasteland. Alright. I think I play out Wasteland, but don't fire off Wasteland immediately. I can wait until this trigger is on the stack. A little awkward because this commits to not playing second Deeproot Wayfinder. Okay, trigger on the stack, Wasteland, target Tundra, floating white mana. That Wasteland can just go to graveyard. I will return a new Wasteland. It does enter tapped. Opponent is going to do what now? Play a Doorkeeper Thrall? Play a Felia? Sure. It'll push it. Felia was not on my bingo card. Alright, and I have made my land drop, so I'll pass the turn. My opponent would love to find more basics here to play around Wasteland. I've got Wasteland for days now. Now I can just return fetch lands. Fetch lands convert into surveil lands. My opponent essentially playing Esper Vial, but with Bant colors. Ooh. We'll bash in for 2. This is kind of like drawing a card. Yeah, that can just go to graveyard. Yes, I will use this ability. I'm gonna play 6 this turn, probably. Yeah, I'm probably gonna play 6 this turn. You're a surveil land in the future. This is Dazeable. My opponent is returning a land, though. I think I'm good with that. I can't petty theft from graveyard, right? Non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. Pretty sure the answer to that is no. This is a non-land permanent card, but I'm not casting a non-land permanent card. That's a 3rd basic. That's an endurance. Sure. This is fine. Like, I have the stuff that I need in play already. Sometimes I just find an answer to that. I believe that I have the mana to just do this. Hey, an answer to that. So, land drop, fetch, get black, black, and colorless to go for the throat. Cool. We are mid-ranging. I'll put the Bayou into my hand, and I can surveil the Hedge Maze into play. Or, you know what I mean. I'm not technically surveilling it into play. Ponder's fine. I guess I am really enjoying looking at this Ponder. I'm not expecting a board wipe, given what I have seen so far. So I'm okay just playing out more creatures. And I probably get to just remove... Oh, fuck. That explains the Felia. I can't do this for free, right? Yeah. Okay. Damn it. Alright. So what happens here is my opponent drains 2, and then returns Cavern Harpy to hand, and then replays Cavern Harpy. This causes them to return Strix to hand, and then this process can just repeat until I am dead. Yeah, I was not expecting to need to hold up Brazen Borrower or immediately die. My opponent had 3 cards in hand. Alurin plus Strix plus Cavern Harpy is all of those cards plus 1 draw for turn. Well, that is unfortunate. Now I know. So the force effects are pretty good at stopping me from dying to Alurin. My opponent has enough basics that they can get a little bit better against the whole Wasteland recursion thing. This Life from the Loam can probably go. Abrupt Decay misses Alurin, which is unfortunate. I probably don't want to cut too many blue cards here. If I cut too many blue cards, my Force of Wills are sketch. They're not in the main deck because I am a very green deck to start with. Other than the Force of Will count, I kind of want to junk Uro. I think Uro is just going to run into endurance problems. My opponent is probably playing a bunch of those given the current metagame. Like 4 in main deck would not surprise me. I could get rid of my Dazes on the draw. Again, that's blue count for Force of Will, though. I also might have to worry about things like Baleful Strix that can just wall a Psychic Rug. I could do something like this. I would become kind of threat light. If I do this, I do not love my blue count for Force of Will. I am not sure how I should be sideboarding here. Stalker is perfectly fine. This Force of Vigor that's in my hand is not super hard castable. Hopefully that's fine. And I think I set this up to trigger Descend twice on turn 2 rather than just do it immediately on turn 1. Let's not get... I guess Wasteland is probably not a big concern here. Alright. I'm not super expecting turn 1 plays from my opponent most of the time, unless it's just removal. See? Said removal. Ooh. I think I do the mana efficiency play here. Makes this more awkward, but hopefully that's fine. So we will play the Wayfinder. Like it's just land go. Hand trip is fine. I think I am just going to do my attack first. You can do some things with like Ponder and Surveil where you keep a card, get rid of a middle card, keep another thing. I am going to junk that card, return a fetch land. Now I'll Ponder. I don't mind those cards. I don't really want this Force of Vigor. So we'll send that one to the bottom. Keep the others. Make land drop. Play Stalker. And I have Delta that I can keep bringing back again and again and again to hedge against what my opponent has going on. Alright, opponent does get a non-basic land here, but a basic this time. Now they have basics in all 3 of their primary colors. And again, with this trigger on the stack, I can fetch. I don't need to preemptively fetch or anything. Send it. Ice Fang Coatl. That will be death touchy, which probably just means that I abrupt decay it now, even though that's fine value for my opponent. Get out of the way, bud. Alright, cool. So combat damage happens. I'm going to just get an untapped land to leave Brazen Borrower and Abrupt Decay available. That can be a drop. Let's say no to that. And then bring back Delta. And this is going to start to grow. We have 2 pieces of interaction for an Aluren. That's not green for Aluren. Yes, that resolves. Tempo play? I think we attempt the tempo play here. Fantastic. Not the biggest fan of drawing the Bayou, but it's fine. Send it on in. Now we Deeproot Wayfinder. A lot of times I want to Surveil land in this spot, but I think I just pick up another basic. Like, I know what is theoretically coming. Yeah, that can go into graveyard. Yes. I know a Tundra is coming. Let's grab this Wasteland. Play Bayou. And pass. I'll trigger the Stalker here. So I have it very close to lethal now. I have 3 green and 6 mana, meaning that I can cast both of my spells. I would love to just put Brazen Borrower in and attack my opponent to nearly dead. There's a wastelandable land for us. Whatever this is, I probably don't like it. A straight up draw 3. I will respond to that and put Brazen Borrower in play before my opponent can draw any more cards. The thing that I have to worry about is just getting comboed out next turn. Psychic Frog is a little late to the party. I probably don't even play that this turn. Send. Alright. Opponent goes to 1. Take out Tundra. Surveil. if I am alive next turn, do I want Brainstorm? Sure. And then we'll just return the Wasteland in case it's relevant. And pass turn with these available, as well as this ability. That is an Alurin. I can now cast my Psychic Frog for free. And I can Force of Vigor Alurin at some point. The fear is that I fire it off at the wrong time, and then my opponent just goes off in response. I think I wait until something scary goes on the stack, and then respond. Okay, cool. That was a little lucky. I can be a little more cognizant of back to basics this game. I've got a bunch of Abrupt Decays that answer it. I think I am happy with how I have sideboarded. The Force of Wills are a little awkward, but are one of my few hard no's to Alurin. Bayou Days, Ponder, no, that I don't think is worth keeping. Oh god. I have 2 Surveil lands here to try and fix this. And Dazes to replay them, potentially. I am going to get rid of the Force of Vigor and hope that I can make this reasonable. I can also play this game on triple basic. That is another viable way to do that. This is a weird time to brainstorm, so this is probably an indicator that my opponent has a Lorien Revealed in hand. Ponder is good. Ponder is real good. This keeps the dream of playing this game fully on basics alive. I'd love to find something like a Psychic Frog here. I think the order is bam, 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 no shuffle, pass turn. I would love to put this Psychic Frog into play before I daze something. Your Brainstorm is fine. Notably, my opponent chose not to shuffle for the previous Brainstorm, meaning that they like their cards. If I play this game on basics, double dazing is very tough. I think I am going to ignore the prospect of double dazing and just play out Psychic Frog here. And single daze to protect Psychic Frog from something like an end of turn Swords to Plowshares. And I just have another creature if my opponent plays a removal spell around daze here. Yeah, that's fine. I would really like both dazes to be active at the same time, but I don't really think that it's correct to just open myself up to back to basics right now. All right, this is not green, so that's good news for me. A Leyline Binding is annoying. Abrupt Decay does not answer that. So we're looking for another threat off the top. The Abrupt Decays are not ideal currently. Now I have double daze available because I can hard cast one and then return the other. I'm fine versus the fair creature stuff. This is annoying. I can just decay it. For mana efficiency reasons, I will decay it now. I'm just lacking a source of card advantage right now. The fact that I boarded out a handful of creatures is relevant in this game, as I've had 2 bodies answered. I'll show it. I will daze that. Yeah. I don't love using my daze on something that is not named Alurin here. That technically does stuff versus Leyline Binding. Because I am playing on basics here, I can't actually just cast this as a 3-power threat. Do I even care? Not right now. Yeah, I don't think I care about that right now. Then end of turn, I will Petty Theft the Leyline Binding back to hand as a tempo play. Get my Deeproot back. Force of Vigor is almost good. Send in. Do the Surveil thing. Underground Sea can go to Graveyard. I will use this ability. I already have a Wasteland in play. Sometimes I want to end up with green. This can get a Trop. I'll pass turn. And if things are safe for me at the end of this turn, I can Abrupt Decay back to basics and start doing cool things from there. And then that opens up like hard casting Force of Vigor on an Allurin, so that should be fine. I am not in love with doing this though. Like I would rather use this on some sort of Endurance or Ice Fang Coatl type card. Most of what I could do with Brainstorm, I could still do in combat in response to an Ice Fang Coatl. I guess let's see if that's happening first. Send it. I'll Brainstorm in response. 1, 2. I don't have blue to play this turn unless I keep this fetch land. Could be 1, 2. Always that. I don't want 2 of those right now. I don't know, maybe I do. Like the Shell Leyline Binding cooking over there. Yeah. Okay. That gets removed. I'll pass turn. I can hard cast a Force of Vigor if I need to. And I have days for if my opponent slams and a learn. A new back to basics. I will just Force of Vigor that. That's fine. I think it is fine to treat that as a 1-for-1 trade. And hopefully I get to play a flash creature and actually start attacking in. That's not bad. But I don't have a source of card advantage. I feel like I am slipping further and further behind here with no card advantage and no clock. Maybe I could have gone lighter on removal spells and kept a couple more creatures in the deck. The fact that my opponent has this many basics that they can just go and ignore my Wastelands while also playing back to basics that I kind of need to counter. It's a little rough. I think I let that go. I think I try to eat 2 cards at the same time with a Force of Vigor. I will ponder. No. I'm looking for threats. I did not find any threats. That is cycling a Triome. That's fine. I could Force a Vigor to put a 3-power threat into play. I don't think that's what this game is about. We'll ponder again. Stalkers aren't the ideal threat. Not very good at messing around with them unless I Wasteland myself or something like that. I think I'm just going to accept them. And this turn cycle is a little sweaty. I only have 1 piece of disruption in this next turn cycle. But my opponent did not know that. Alright. This can be an Allurin moment. There's the fetch. There's the basic forest. I will attempt days. I guess none of these cards are castable, so I should just hard cast the days. Hard cast. Oh, fuck, it actually worked. That is surprising. So now I can hard cast either one of these spells if I don't play Stalker. This also leaves up Force of Vigor plus Fatal Push. Okay, I'm not playing Stalker. Send on in. This game is a great illustration of basic lands are good, just by the way, in case I haven't said that. Yeah, you get that. I do not believe that is worth the Force of Will. I don't even have to Fatal Push it at this time. My mana is going to be really tight for the rest of the game, though, so I will. Like, I have 2 Menace creatures. This is currently not really threatening. Let's do this. Yes. Has text versus Leyline Binding, has text versus Allurin. I'll put that on top. This awkwardly means that I'm probably not playing this Stalker, and I'm also not growing the other one. But I think I need my colorless Wasteland mana too much. Or Brainstorm is fine. Eternal Witness. That represents a new Allurin. That I probably Force of Will. I don't know if my opponent still has counterspells in. Based on what I'm seeing so far, it feels like no. Alright. Attack for 1. Opponent goes to 12. I will play Stalker. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I believe that I Wasteland my own Wasteland here to just grow these. Now that I don't have Force of Will in my hand, it's not like I can do both of these in the same turn cycle right now anyway. 4 power on board would be 7 power on board. Yes. This is very good for me if my opponent does not actually have counterspells. This would be a great tempo Force of Will. 1, 2. Please work, please work. Fuck yeah. This is a 2-turn clock. Sure. So send it. Opponent goes to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In theory, I could use both of these activated abilities. I think I fetch an untapped land. Black, black, green, green, blue, blue, blue. Doesn't super matter. We'll just pick up an extra black source then. Alright. This has been a fucking slog of a game. We are both low on time. Yes. I am showing 5-ish damage. I can sacrifice this Stalker, and then I am showing 6 damage. I don't think I'm going for it. I think I'm just going to attack for 5. Yeah. Sometimes I just draw a removal spell here, too. Negative. I think I'm just going to send in for the 5 with Menace. That shuts off Fetch Lands. That shuts off Force of Wills. And I think I just leave up these abilities rather than cast Psychic Frog. The cycling's fine. If my opponent plays an Allurin, I can cast Psychic Frog and then Boseiju. Am I gonna get Wrath of Godded? I'm not blocking. Yeah, I am. That sucks. Ponder. Daze is not great. I need to leave up 2 mana for Boseiju, no matter what. Black mana, blue, black. Leave up Boseiju still? Yes. So, Stalker, Psychic Frog, and pass. Either one of these connecting is lethal. Opponent has stopped in their draw step. Are you playing Terminus in your Allurin deck? Yes. Endurance is good. Yep. So I will just play another Psychic Frog and pass. Reach here is very good. Oh, it's Triumph of St. Catherine. Sure. That's horrifying. So that is a 5/5 lifelinker. It does not fly, but it's also not an artifact or enchantment or non-basic land. Oh, there's more? Sure. I think this Triumph usually ends up winning my opponent the game. You are late. I'll pass turn here. I take this hit. This puts my opponent out of range of just dying to a single Psychic Frog hit, unfortunately. I will daze the shit out of that. Absolutely not. I think Surveil Land is more important than basically anything else here. I always know what I need. It's removal for this. And this is where not having... Well, I guess a Murktide Regent wouldn't even outscale this right now. Yeah, rough. Yeah, I might have spent this entire game playing around the combo and my opponent boarded it out for a pile of Triumph of St. Catherine's. Take the hit. I'm at 2. I don't know how I win. Sure as fuck isn't Wasteland. Gain flying. 1, 2, 3. Send in. Draw my card. Force of Will is not gonna do it. Opponent's deck construction paid off well versus the sort of stuff that I was doing here. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, just the best place to keep your online deck lists, and the reason I say that is it just has so much functionality. So for example, let's take a look at some random legacy deck here. You can click on your various 2-drop slots and you can see what % chance you have of casting various things on curve, and you can get a breakdown of your mana symbols and all of that stuff, and there's a lot more here than just this. Consider checking it out. Alright, single land Boseiju hand, not gonna do it. This one is lacking a threat, but hopefully I can just ponder for 1 and move on with my life. Got 2 removal spells here if our opponent's playing fair. I've got Brainstorm if they're playing unfair. Given my relatively high land count in this deck, I think I can just throw back a Trop and keep both cantrips and expect to naturally draw a land over the course of this game. Well, yeah, but no. Well, there's the naturally drawn land. However, we did not find a threat in 4 cards, meaning my turn 2 is likely to actually be pretty bad. Why did everyone get the memo that basic lands is good? Has someone been screaming that from the rooftop for years? So here is a turn 1 Brainstorm. After I showed Underground Sea, this may just be my opponent playing around in Orcish Bowmasters, which is a very, very reasonable thing to be in my deck. The next interesting thing is whether or not I brainstorm on my own turn. If I do, I can find Stalactite Stalker. Never mind. We just do that. Now, this is the Psychic Frog that is not backed up by counter magic, so this one's just going to die. If it doesn't, awesome. If it gives us a 2-for-1, awesome. Pitching Narset. Ooh. Oh, one lander. Opponent brainstorm locked themselves. Let's find another threat here, please. I don't just want to play Brazen Borrower as a 3-1. I'd rather do something that looks like this. Hedge Maze, Forest going back. Fetch a Trop. We're going to drop a source of card advantage. It's probably not a particularly good source of card advantage because my opponent is likely playing a large number of basic lands. Yeah. And then a shuffle. Sure. So I think I am going to brainstorm now and potentially use this to just surveil cards that I don't want into my graveyard. Let's surveil this Bayou into my graveyard. Send it. Do the 2. Put into graveyard. Use this ability. Return the fetch land. I think I just play Brazen Borrower as a threat in this turn cycle. I'm going to set an upkeep stop. I don't want the land that's on top of my deck right now. Fairy Rogue, go, go, go. Did not eat Counterspell directly. I'm going to fetch. Given the number of lands that I have, I think it is totally fine to just surveil again here. Above average card. I have no idea what exactly I'm looking for, though. I think I'm just going to put that into my graveyard. Like before, let's ponder now. Daze is okay. My opponent's choked on mana. I'll take Daze and get rid of an Abrupt Decay. 5 damage. Then put that into graveyard. Yes, I'll use this ability. I'll return Delta. I'll play a Wasteland. I'm fine putting that into play. Like, once you see this, you know there are Wastelands in the deck. Okay. I am playing against blue cantrips and Prismatic Vista and Narset. So what's my opponent playing? Prismatic Vista, the first time fetching island, makes sense pretty much no matter what they're on. And then the second land played was another naturally drawn island. It's possible that this is a control deck, like some sort of, say, Grixis control. It's also possible that this is a combo deck, and the Narset is just some random mid-range value. The answer might just be like, hey, just don't sideboard idiot. Or maybe, like, sub-fatal push for Sheoldred's Edict if my opponent is playing large creatures like Murktide Regent. This hits that. This hits Planeswalkers like Narset. Could generically play something like Flusterstorm in something like the Life from the Loam spot, assuming that my opponent is playing a lot of basics. Just play something else that protects Psychic Frog. I guess I could also have to worry about just my opponent playing something like Psychic Frog, and then like having something like this is perfectly reasonable. In the absence of more information, let's try this, and hopefully we can win one of the next 2. Not with this hand. Awkward, but okay. I think I get rid of Wasteland too. I'm just gonna land pass, that's fine. Abrupt Decay, not going to be very easy to cast off of this specific hand. Basic Plains. Okay, so Needle pointing towards control or Stoneblade or something of that general nature. This is fully uncastable. I am probably going to just surveil land that away. So, yeah. And by putting it into graveyard, I make 6 potentially better. We can maybe bring that back later if we do end up with extra lands. Alright. My dazes are getting worse and worse here. Fuck. Alright. I am unsure if I would do something like Double Daze to protect a 6. It is a very, very high cost to do so. No play? Wow. What does that indicate? Teferi? Yeah. This hitting play right now is pretty bad for me. I'll cast this, return my island. And I assume that my opponent will just pay. Alright, it is Jeskai control specifically. Yeah, this is real bad if my opponent then forces to protect this. Okay, cool, they didn't. Alright, so attack. Mill 3, untapped black land would be hot. No lands at all. Fucking rough. Surveil. That goes to graveyard. None of those are wastelandable. I pass turn. Man, my wastelands. So bad. It is an actual factual Jace the Mind Sculptor. Should my opponent be playing that card? Probably not. Is it absolutely going to beat my ass here? Yes. Yes, it fucking is. Ponder for Sheoldred's Edict. I think Ponder for Sheoldred's Edict. I think that gives me the best chance of actually just winning the game. Disaster. Okay. So, because I have Wasteland, I don't get to Psychic Frog. Because I Pondered, I don't get to 6. I can't Abrupt Decay. I believe that I have lost the game when my opponent untaps with Jace here. I am not going to concede because I want to see more of their deck. Like, I want to know if there's Stoneforges in there. I want to know if I'm dealing with 4th Aerlingas. I want to know if Murktide Regent is there. Yeah, that's happening. Yep. This was expected. Now I can't really Surveil land, unfortunately. That means that this is basic Swamp. Pair it with basic Island. Make my opponent deal with this Psychic Frog. It should not be hard. Yes. So Force of Vigor becomes something that I could play to negate back to basics. I think I'll just rely on my Abrupt Decays for that. Force of Will maybe becomes interesting for finishers, but I don't know that I love that. But we are just playing against these decks that have basic lands against our Wasteland Recursion deck, so life is harder than we would like it to be. Sure. I don't think I Wasteland. I think I am more likely to need this mana. Or I am more likely to need this mana than my opponent is to need that mana. I need to find basic forest. No. But yeah, life's awful. My opponent will just keep brainstorming every turn for free. I don't have something like Bowmaster in the deck to just punish this. I'm not in red, so I don't get Pyroblast to just like cleanly answer both of these cards at the same time. Can't Daze Narset. So now my opponent gets Selection. Finding another Jace. Okay, so like that is a core part of the game plan. Understood. That is, I guess, a castable Magic the Gathering card. Like, I can put this out of play and then try to play multiple creatures in the same turn, and then my opponent will cast Supreme Verdict and I'll cry. Sure. We do have the Shuffle. Petty Theft, the Back to Basics out of play. Opponent does have 8 cards in hand here, so they are incentivized to react to this. Okay, cool. Just decay back to basics and then deploy multiple cards in the same turn, I think. My issue here is that I am just going to walk into Supreme Verdict so hard. This Jace is burying me. Counterbalance. You've got it. Now do I care about that more than back to basics? Probably. This card either does nothing or everything. Oh, I have to fetch first. Grab Forest. I think given my opponent's other advantages, I can't also let them randomly counter some of my cards. Triumph of St. Catherine is another thing my opponent could reasonably be playing. Narset is a thing. I would love to play 6 when I have a land in hand and immediately can play another spell as well. I think I will just play Deeproot Wayfinder. Again, though, my opponent has 7 cards in hand. Like, this 2/3 creature is not a problem. Bye. Sure. My opponent has at least 6 basic lands. Oh no, we're at this point where my opponent is confident enough in their hand that they're like, no, let's just make your draws worse. In case you've never seen this thing Ultimate, it exiles all cards from target player's library, and then they shuffle their hand into their library. So it is some shit. We've got a 2/3. Jace is at 4 loyalty. If this is ever a problem, it's just boing. Yes. My opponent also has an extra card queued up with Narset at some point, so, you know. Stalker? 1, 2, and 3. Stalker, off swap, discarding a land. We're in play. I think not going to worry about scaling this. I don't expect it to be alive. Oh, right, I discarded a land to make that happen. Oh, geez. Sure. That's swords on 6. You got it. So I gain a little life. I have a menace creature in play. Again, shouldn't really matter. Opponent not even bothering to bounce it. There's the removal spell. Got me a hard win condition, though. Like, I want to see what you expect to actually kill me. That is my entire goal of remaining in this game. Ooh, sure. It sucks that I don't have Bowmasters to just, like, ping this and then turn on my card draw. Say, Livy. Yep. This Flusterstorm not good right now. Like, this is turn 14. Opponent not even bothering to attack. Sure. Yeah, my opponent just lets my stuff resolve. The Jace -12. Sure. Another land drop. Yes. Sure. Okay. The Jace ultimate beats me at this point. Sure. Yeah. I'm not going to let my opponent see everything. I am deterministically dead to that activation. Yeah, so I never saw a 4th Airlingas, a Triumph, a Murktide, anything like that. So I don't know to what extent some stuff like this matters. Is this activated? No, it's triggered. I can play Force of Vigor to have extra outs to back to basics and counterbalance. I'm not super excited about it, but I'm also like not excited about Force of Will. My opponent's going to have Pyroblasts that is going to line up poorly against. And I'm going to trade 1 Daze for a Force of Vigor. Actually, I'm going to get rid of Fluster and keep the Daze. The Daze just helps against like turn 2, 3, 4 tap out stuff. And I think if I win this game, I get a lot of my work done in the first 5 turns. It really sucks that I'm not playing Bowmasters versus this deck, though. If I Brainstorm or Surveil into land drop number 2, this is perfectly fine. And if I don't, I am dead. Actually, it really needs lands 2 and 3 to function. I'm going to mulligan that. This hand is much stronger. I'll keep this getting rid of land 3. I'm going to go land and pass, and I get to decide whether or not this is a Surveil land, or if it is just basic forest. I think it is a Surveil land. I think this is Hedge Maze. That's not what I am looking for right now with 3 threats in hand, although it's a fine card. I think I play a Wayfinder first. Wayfinder does not just immediately eat it to Red Elemental Blast. Like, it gets to play around a removal spell. Yep. Let's play around Red Elemental Blast again. Try to save the good card for when my opponent has used up some removal. Sure. Alright. 3rd. Land. This could just be my opponent slamming a back to basics here. Visit Fairy. I'm dazing that. I'm probably dazing that, returning Hedge Maze. Yeah. My opponent's Force of Will here would be very good, but some number of Force of Wills are probably boarded out in this fair matchup. Let's preemptively Surveil. Yeah, we can just send that to graveyard. I would love to return a blue or green land here. This is an important enough card that I'm not going to bin that. We get back a fetch. Don't Supreme Verdict me, please. I think I need to play out the extra thing here. Back to basics is pretty insane right now. A Planeswalker is good. A removal spell is fine. Supreme Verdict is insane. Back to basics, yeah. Now I have Force of Vigor for that, but I can't answer stuff immediately. Fuck. Yeah. Makes the Uro very hard to bring back. We're looking for any green card to turn on Force of Vigor. Yeah, I put that into my graveyard and then I just return it. Good value. Drop a Bayou. Now any land gives me hard cast Force of Vigor. Sure. So I think we are taking splash damage from Eldrazi. I think like these Blood Moon Back to Basics style cards are coming about as a result of Eldrazi picking up such a huge metagame share. Batterskull. I can pick that up with Force of Vigor, in theory. In practice, that might be harder. Alright. Oh no. Another swords then. Yes. I'll play this. Can I actually 2-for-1 my opponent with Force of Vigor? I can if I make them hardcast the Batterskull. This opens up a Planeswalker to be better versus me. I only have one of these. I think I live with that. Tap out for the fucking Batterskull, please. God damn it. Yeah. Yeah. That's frustrating. Main phase, Force of Will before my opponent gets like another Brainstorm, I think. Alright, Force of Vigor. Swamp means that I'm not easily casting Uro unless this Back to Basics leaves play. This does let my opponent like know to look for another one, but I think I just can't let them like untap, hold up, hardcast Force of Will if that card is still in their deck. Brutal. Alright, there's the Batterskull. Life's bad. Wasteland's bad. Green, green, blue, blue, 1 extra. So I am okay to Brainstorm. Put back a Wasteland. Green, green, blue, blue, 1. This card just like doesn't matter that much though versus the stuff that's happening. So fetch. I'm probably going to be playing this Uro from graveyard multiple times. This extra mana is fine. Green, green, blue, blue, 3, 4. I don't have endurance, so I can't put this back into my deck, so this is fine to go. The Uro helps with Batterskull, but like Jace is still a massive problem. So, game plan is Jace bounces Uro, Brazen Borrower attacks and kills Jace. Oh fuck. The opponent just has removal for Uro? Yes. Just take the hit from the Germ. Ending this Jace is all that matters. I think it's very unlikely to work. The Brazen Borrower hit play. Snapcaster. Snapcaster. If my next turn isn't really good, I will probably just concede and move on. I don't think I am beating board here unless I get 2 quite good cards, like the Uro is gone. Yeah, I'll take another Ponder. I think I'm just going to clear. Let's figure out what the fuck I'm looking for. A new Uro, a 6 maybe. Let's surveil. Corrupt Decay is not doing it. Let's ponder. Brazen Borrower gives me a chance to kill the Jace end of turn. Let's say that that's fine. Again, I don't think I'm beating the 4 cards in hand. My opponent can also just like Jace minus on their Snapcaster Mage, and then they cover a threat. So opponent has 5 cards in hand after that Brainstorm, 6 power in play, and a source of card advantage. There's almost no chance that Brazen Borrower resolves and kills Jace. But we'll try. Alright, it is a hardcast Force of Will, sure. So we'll ponder. That stuff's not going to do it. Shuffle, yes. Alright. Blue, blue, green, green. Sure. Okay. So, green, blue, green, blue. Bells first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I hit an untapped land and can also play a Psychic Frog. Maybe we can talk. Sure. Negative. So my opponent didn't Brainstorm until after the Uro had happened, so that is just the indicator that like they've got that covered either through Jace Bounce or some exile-based removal spell. Yeah, there we go. I'm so dead. There's just like the smallest slimmers of hope. That eliminates the hope, I think. Now the Psychic Frogs can't draw additional cards. There's a Back to Basics coming, yeah. I'll take my draw step. I think we're good. I think this one has slipped enough that I'm going to value my time. Okay, this hand isn't perfect. It's not the best at always casting Psychic Frog on turn 2, but I have Life from the Loam Wasteland, and I think that's good enough for a keep. Sure. I think that I try to cast Psychic Frog on turn 2. I just get a blue-black land here and try to smooth things out. Fuck. I don't. Put back Uro and one other card chosen at random. The second card doesn't matter that much. Now we will just go Boseiju, Life from the Loam, return Polluted Delta, and then next turn I can dredge over the Uro and end up with that in my graveyard. We're hoping not to see Entomb or Troll into Reanimate immediately. This is fine. Maybe a Bug Beans deck? No. This is usually an indicator of a show and tell deck list. So hopefully my opponent doesn't have just like Ancient Tomb in to go off here. If they don't, I can try to Wasteland my opponent and soft lock them. That can get a basic that's quite good here. Oh, it's getting another Trop. Yeah. Yes, I am going to dredge that. We know that Uro is there. I will Wasteland the open tropical island. It is island cycling yet again. This time getting the basic. Thought we were going to get that last time. We will return that Wasteland. I don't currently have counterspells, and I only have soft counters in my deck game 1. My Force of Wills are in the sideboard here. Sure. So as this game goes very long, my opponent can just force through a show and tell. That's a basic. My opponent has at least 2 basics. I don't think I am dredging this turn. I think I would like to find a Daze. I'm always Wastelanding. And I think I will pass the turn and do some end of turn brainstorm nonsense and hold up Brazen Borrower. So, we're going to brainstorm. I'm not going to get that Life from the Loam back immediately. Although I will probably dredge it because these cards are not great right now. They go like 1 and 2. Dredge Life from the Loam. Playing Bayou is fine. This gives me Psychic Frog, and I can make Psychic Frog very big very quickly. Now, Planar Genesis can help my opponent undo the damage that I did to their mana base via Wasteland. Not having Force of Will as something that I can dig towards is huge here. Yeah, no, that's happening. I will put in a land so that I can Brazen Borrower and Omniscience when a spell goes on the stack. Yeah, response. Get some blue mana. Probably blue-green. We've got an Uro graveyard. I guess I have green-green already, so this can be Underground Sea. We'll attempt to Petty Theft back the Omniscience to hand. Fuck. Alright. Have it your way. Now this other Veil of Summer cantrips as well. Frustrating. This is our 3rd round in a row of our opponents just playing basic land-heavy deck lists that I can't Wasteland lock out of the game. And when that happens, I'm just not playing functional Magic. Cunning Wish off of Omniscience should end the game. I'm not going to make my opponent click through this. I am just going to concede. It just beats me. So this is Firemind Foresight for another Cunning Wish. The Cunning Wish gets something that tutors for creatures, and my opponent annihilates all my stuff. So I need 4 Force of Wills, 1 Flusterstorm. What is this counter? Triggered ability. Can counter an Emrakul extra turn, I guess. To a lesser extent, these 5 cards are playable. I do not want Push. I do not want Go for the Throat. I honestly don't want Life from the Loam, and I don't want Abrupt Decay. That gives me these blue cards. The goal is to just keep a show and tell from resolving in the first place. It's just tough to do that. That's my opponent's Veil of Summers. I'm just going to play 1 Surgical. I think my opponent's very favored here. Not feel keepable. This cannot cast any spells other than Flusterstorm. No. Easily the best hand here. Wait, am I playing that tapped land on 1? You get 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I can play this tapped land on 1. Yeah. I'm going to just work some stuff into the graveyard here for if I happen to spike an Uro down the road. The Brainstorm is a fine card. It's, you know, something blue that pitches to Force of Will. Fuck. Okay. That's super bad. And I threw the Wasteland back so I could keep Force of Will plus Brainstorm. I think I'm playing Psychic Frog this turn. It's honestly pretty close, but if this gets a Wasteland, it comes into play tapped, and if this gets a Wasteland, I get to use it immediately. Sure. Donde está Wasteland? My opponent likes their card. That's probably not good for me. Send in for 1. 19. Brainstorm going well has the highest upside, but I'm going to try this. This is going to give me such an ability to dig for cards, assuming that I make it another turn. That is not necessarily a safe assumption here. Yep. That is uncounterable. There's Omniscience. I can counter a lot of things that my opponent casts, but not all of them. I will attempt to counter that. That is a lot of value. Fuck. Alright, well, I'm F6'd. I assume that I am dead. Yeah. That'll do. Concede. GG's. Alright, we have kind of a mediocre opening hand here. I've got a couple of Psychic Frogs and a Brazen Borrower to bounce a potential blocker out of play. Probably doing a Surveil land here. Please don't Entomb. That's not Entomb. Another fucking basic land pile. Sure. At least I am on a Psychic Frog hand rather than a Green Duder hand. Deeproot Wayfinder, question mark. We're probably playing against something in like the Beans ballpark. I'm gonna Hedge Maze. I don't have green mana in my hand yet. No. Oh. Hello, Wasteland. If my opponent just drops game 1 back to basics and I get super punished by not playing as conservatively as possible. But like I need the extra blue pips in play to like multi-spell and Brazen Borrower and stuff. Another island cycle. Sure. My opponent gets snow-covered island, but then plays a wastelandable land, which I am happy with. And I can decide how crazy I want to go here. I don't know what my opponent is doing. Like, I don't know if we're beans. Saw Lurin earlier today. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Let's just play another frog here. And both are in play. I have 2 different removal spells to keep creatures out of play. Toxic Deluge style cards could be annoying here. Sure. So at some point I can start thinking about throwing some cards into these Psychic Frogs. I don't necessarily think we're there yet. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. I'll Wasteland down to 8 cards. There's a decent chance that I just find a playable creature. And I don't need to discard. Sure. And sure, yeah, this is the sort of thing that I was talking about. So bam. Bam. I'll fetch to trigger this. Am I playing around game 1 back to basics? Not if I have an Abrupt Decay in hand. Scale up. We'll see what my opponent's doing. Okay, cool. That's Wastelandable next turn. 4th land drop and pass. Sure. Do I want to just use a Brainstorm for pure mana efficiency here? Sure. It's not really doing anything right now. Double Icefang Coatl in combat is answered by double Abrupt Decay. Put this Swamp 2 down. But I always want to Wasteland this land, right? I can't hold up double Abrupt Decay and Wasteland. Okay. Well, let's Wasteland then. Sack. Alright. Send them in. No blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's discard a couple cards here. Like leave some degree of interaction here. Do lethal next turn. Sure. Lots of lands. I've already made a land drop, so I'll pass. I have some interaction available. No play from my opponent. Yes. Looks like show and tell again. It's the One Ring. Am I hard casting this days? Nah. Return that Underground Sea. Force a Will pitching Cunning Wish. The ring is going to resolve, and I can decide whether or not I am trying to bounce it out of play. It's a little awkward to bounce it out of play. But I can stop my opponent from drawing any cards if I do that. But then it gives them another fog. I just have a chance to draw a counter for this on the way back down, though. I think I petty theft that back to hand. It's weird. So that effectively keeps my opponent from drawing any cards. Gives me a chance to draw a Wasteland to take this out, a new counter spell, whatever. My Abrupt Decays are dead cards or very close to it. Let's brainstorm. Look for like Wasteland or Daze, I guess. There's Wasteland. Put back land, Wasteland, Wasteland, target this land. My opponent has fogged. So I am passing the turn here. My creatures are very lethal sized. And we keep the One Ring from coming down the second time. I'm very happy to win game 1 here, because I don't think we're favored as a whole. Force of Wills are in. Null Rods for the One Ring are in. Bluster's fine. This just counters the One Ring. That might be good enough. I feel like these fall into a tier 2 of stuff. So I don't want push. I definitely don't want Abrupt Decays. I really don't even want to answer the creatures once they're in play. I want to stop Show and Tell from resolving if possible. By that logic, I probably shouldn't play that. I need 4 more cuts if I want to play all of this. Boarding all 4 of these might be hedging too heavily against the One Ring specifically. My life from the Loam gets worse if my opponent knows to play around Wasteland. I can probably let that go. Probably go down some numbers of threats. Burrow's upside is that it's blue and pitches to force. 6's upside is that it attacks sooner. I think pitching to force is important. There's this. But a lot of times if the Omniscience gets into play, it's, already game over. This is fine. Surveil land or ponder on turn 1. Sure. That's annoying. I've just boarded out most of my removal. No. So my opponent gets to start accumulating clues and can pretty easily flip this into the Planeswalker's side. I'm gonna fetch. Probably always Underground Sea. I think it is Psychic Frog. I can opt to just give Psychic Frog flying and have it block the Tamiyo if my opponent goes in with it. And we'll just crack that clue to stay mana efficient. That's okay with me. Ponder is fine. So this will be card 2 of the turn for Tamiyo purposes. Cracking a clue could be number 3. Here's the fetch. Sure. So that triggers the Tamiyo, meaning my frog is 1 smaller than it looks. This is combat damage to a player or planeswalker, by the way. Vexing Bobble defensively is a little annoying here. So I'll send in at this Tamiyo, like so. My frog gets smaller. And then after no blocks, we're taking some game actions. I'm going to discard a bunch of my hand. I'll discard 1 land here. I'm going to play Psychic Frog and probably Ponder, meaning that Forest can go. Brainstorm can go. Deeproot can go. That gets me to Tamiyo dead. Do that while drawing a card. I will Ponder. Fluster is neat. Burrow seems unnecessary with double Psychic Frog. Discarding Uro and then playing it almost immediately is kind of fun. I don't have green for Uro. I'm gonna shuffle that. Sure. I'll have that for later. Play a new Psychic Frog. Pass turn. The One Ring would be pretty bad here. Show and Tell also pretty damn bad. Yep. Opponent's got an Emrakul. I believe I boarded out most or all of my outs to that, as the goal was to stop the Show and Tells from resolving. Sewers. Null Rod, not so much. That is too late. I can draw 1 more card here. This is flying, so, don't need to make my Psychic Frogs fly. So I lose a Psychic Frog, I draw 1 card. That is a way to keep my stuff around. My Edict is here. Don't have Caracas or anything. Like, do I have anything that randomly answers Brazen Borrower? No. I'm not going to show my opponent this card. Like, I live another card if I do. I live another turn if I do, but I don't know that that's great. I think just despite the fact that, like, I did want that Edict there, I don't know, they have Tamios too. Uro is very slow, even by this matchup's standards. I can play a couple of things that mess with Tamios. Abrupt Decay can also hit Bobble. Sure. Yeah, I'll keep that. This is a little awkward. Little sewers. I'd like to find another blue card here. We'll say no to that. Because the dream is play this with, or sorry, play Psychic Frog with Force of Will backup. If I don't draw a blue card, I might need to think about playing this. It's much worse, especially if my opponent leads on basics. Given that, I think I am going to drop Force of Will for a turn and try to play Psychic Frog. I think that is the thing that most commonly actually leads me to winning this game, even though it puts me at a massive disadvantage in the next turn cycle. With 2 more draws, I should usually pick up a blue card. Awkward. That occurs. Well, there's my blue card I wanted to pick up. I might end up dumping a whole fuckload of cards into Psychic Frog here. Null Rod's interesting. If I keep the Null Rod, that helps with the 1 ring card advantage side of this deck, but does nothing against the show and tell side. I'm already kind of soft to the show and tell side. I think hedging against a different side of the deck is perfectly fine. So 1, 2, 3. Don't use Ponder's ability. Drawing a cantrip next turn is fine. I guess a cantrip immediately. Yeah, so let's go to combat. Send in Psychic Frog. After no blocks. I think I like this better if I cast Null Rod pre-combat. Honestly. Discard. I think discard 1 more. I think it's worth it. Let's go in on the frog. Draw the ponder. And then fetch. Grab an Underground Sea. Cast the Null Rod. But my opponent, if I still have that Force of Will in my hand, like maybe my opponent cracks this. I said that wrong. Sometimes if I cast the Null Rod, my opponent cracks this. That's fine. And then I can keep my Force of Will and not discard it. We've got to fetch for that ponder. Cameo's a blocker. Let's figure out what we're doing with our lives. I'm not into any of that. Wasteland doesn't do anything. Let's attack, see if my opponent wants to block. I think I will give them the opportunity to. Alright, they will. I play Wasteland, I have Petty Theft around Daze, but having the Wasteland in hand might actually change the clock. Daze is less likely if Vexing Bobble gets involved. I could Petty Theft this out of play. I don't think I'm into that. Could both Sage you it. That I'm slightly more intrigued by. I think I will discard Wasteland. I don't know, it gives me Brazen Borrower plus Boseiju. I think I'm good without both. I want to just always kill my opponent next turn. Okay, well, I will play this land so that I am representing both of the things that I can represent. Alright, it took us 4 rounds, but we did put a win on the board. Alright, I've got a pretty mediocre hand here. My opponent has mulliganed very deeply, probably meaning that they are on a combo deck, so any extra counter spells that I can find would be appreciated. So, no shuffle here. I'm going to want to play my fetch land next turn most of the time. Underground Sea. It is Grief. That is happening. You may take one of my 2 dazes. And it happens. But if my opponent kept this hand on the strength of a Reanimate, they're not doing the thing here. Now, this deck is likely to have fewer non-basic lands than my opponents in previous rounds. Doesn't mean 0, but fewer. This could now be a reanimate around the known days. Sure. I don't have Force of Wills that I'm looking for, so like this is always going to resolve. I'm just going to put a good card on top of my deck. I guess I could double Days. That doesn't feel good. I probably don't want further copies of Days. I think I am getting rid of Days and hiding 6 on top of my library. I don't think I lose to the random 3/2 Grief. I think the Brazen Borrower is the best card in my hand. My opponent agrees. Play Trop. Fetch. Probably get Bayou so I can't be wastelanded off of any specific land. Jam 6. Hope opponent's last card isn't Days. It is not. Now I have a source of some card advantage and selection. I can still just lose to my opponent having Entomb and Reanimate as their last 2 cards. Like, that is still quite possible. At this stage of the game, my opponent knows to play around Days whenever possible. The damage from Grief is not that bad. Like, I will probably end up clocking my opponent faster than they clock me. Psychic Frog is amazing. This turn is already very good and is likely to just get better. Assuming I hit a land here, which I do. My opponent takes 2. 13. I think this Wasteland is just a Wasteland. Black and blue for Psychic Frog. Black for a Stalker around a Days. Pass turn, I'll Wasteland my opponent in their upkeep, assuming they don't do anything with their mana. Sure. I got the Surveil land, so that doesn't get bounced by a Days and then reused. Sure. And now every land that I set back my opponent makes this Days better and better. Brainstorm occurs. Looks like no follow-up to the Brainstorm. Ooh, maybe. I'm so far ahead here, I'm just going to take this 1 for 1. Yeah. Or Uro. Well, first thing, Psychic Frog flies. Rid of 1, 2, 3. Go to combat. 2 of these have Menace. 6 triggers, I'll return a Wasteland. No blocks from my opponent. I'm going to discard some Uros. I don't really even need this Underground Sea anymore, right? Let's just lower my opponent's life total as much as possible. Make Reanimate noticeably worse. Okay, yeah. And then we could either play another Psychic Frog or play Stalker plus Wasteland. Grief was not good enough there. I don't mind an Edict. Don't mind Surgical Extractions. I don't mind Spell Bomb. Clusters and Force of Wills are things that I should be thinking about beyond that. I think I'm going to get rid of Dazes. Going back on the lands doesn't seem great. If my opponent did not have the possibility of just pooping an Atraxa into play, I think I would not be thinking about Force of Wills and Flusterstorms at all. But they do have that possibility. Uro seems slow. Relatively good versus Grief, but slow. I'm going to try to win these games without Force of Will. I'm not sure if that's right. But it seems like if my opponent is just doing fair stuff, I will win if I keep my deck in this configuration. Opponent is mulliganing hyper aggressively. I'm not sure what's up with that. We've got a Delta and a Ponder. So I am going to be the first person to put a threat into play. I'll have a 2/2 in play on turn 1. It'll dodge Bowmasters if my opponent has that as a part of their main deck or sideboard plan. Ooh. I expose this to Bowmasters if I don't fetch this turn. But I can grow both at the same time if I wait a turn. I think I end up playing Abrupt Decay a decent portion of the time, though. Underground Sea. Underground Sea. Underground Sea. Vote out. Thank you. We'll play our 1/1. Soon to be 2/2. My opponent paused and then ultimately dazed. I'm good with that. Like, I have a worse one for next turn. My opponent doesn't get to just, like, Entomb plus Reanimate in the same turn cycle. They don't just immediately drop Psychic Frog. I have a decent number of top decks I can give that are very good. Fetch Land, Wasteland, Green 2-drop that I keep forgetting the name of. 6 is not great here. It's just awkward, like my hand is kind of glutted with expensive cards at this point. And not triggering this immediately means that Bowmasters is live versus it. Again, there's less Bowmaster floating around in the format than a few weeks back, but it's still a very real card. Now, if my opponent reanimates that, Abrupt Decay does not answer that, but Petty Theft will. Ooh. No actual factual reanimate here. My opponent likes their card. The other Uro. Opponent's at 18. I think I just play 6 over Uro. I think 6 is better card advantage at this given time, which is kind of a wild thing to say. The Uro makes this grow. Again, same Bowmaster conversation as a minute ago, right? But I'm less worried about Bowmaster if 6 resolves because I can convert cards. Yeah. This is the entire reason that I put fucking Abrupt Decay into my deck. Respecting this goddamn frog. But now I finally get to kill it in round 5. So I might get some extra cards if I wait and let my opponent block 6 here. I think we're firing in immediately. Do I need 4 mana this turn? Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Maybe I don't. I use 2 for Abrupt Decay. Oh, I think I like Brainstorm Fetch, though. Okay, no blocks from my opponent. So combat damage happens. Still in this phase. Let's fuck up this Psychic Frog. I think I am always going to fetch. So let's Brainstorm. I'll end up putting back 1 Uro and something else that I draw, probably. Yeah, I don't want this Uro. I'll put this Underground Sea back in deck. I'll fetch. I think I need that Underground Sea that I just got rid of. Yeah, that's another reason to not pre-combat do this. Although that was going to be Stalker. But now this becomes Under City Sewers. That's fine. No to that. Then this will scale up into a 2/2 that's now played around Bowmasters. At least the ping portion. 4th land drop for my opponent. I can hardcast a Grief at this stage, if that's one of the things that's been kind of stuck in their hand. Reanimate my creature. Reanimate my creature. And push. Yeah, that's fine. This is going well for me. So, fetch. This is going to be a trop. Petty Theft 6. Send it to my hand. Deploy it immediately. I don't care if my opponent griefs me if they take my Uro. And opponent can maybe Surveil Land one more time. Negative. And that's good enough to get the match. This league started out pretty rough. We put up some wins on it in the second half, though. Alright, so how do we feel about this one at the end of the league? I think it gets the shaky thumbs up, where I think the deck building was fine, but I don't think the metagame is currently positioned that, like, you super want to play this deck. We just ran into so many basic lands over the course of this league because people are trying to do these like Blood Moon back to basics style strategies that simultaneously dodge the Wastelands that you're going to see from blue-black tempo-oriented deck lists and the Wastelands from Eldrazi, while being able to play Harbinger of the Tides, Blood Moon, back to basics, whatever, that really mess with Eldrazi and hit like Scam and Delver relatively well as collateral damage. I think if you are not expecting a bunch of basic lands, like, this is not an unreasonable thing to do. I don't feel like our stuff popped off in a lot of rounds. I feel like the Wasteland stuff kind of got invalidated as games went on and our opponents found basics. Like, this plus Wayfinder or Wasteland plus Life from the Loam, like, definitely does some things. I don't know that I like the power ceiling of that. Like, it's just not, it's situationally good rather than generically good. And, like, does our deck just get better if we shove 4x Murktide Regents into this deck and move the Force of Wills back into the main deck, and then we are less situational? Maybe. 6 did some pretty decent lifting in this league. I was impressed with it. But when I look back at this league, I feel like this league, physically took a very long time to play because I wasn't great at killing my opponents. And not having the game one force of wills, while maybe correct with the way this build is with all of these green creatures, does mean that you are just generically worse versus combo, and you don't have any hard nose in your deck to things on the stack in game one. As we saw in the last round, though, if you can wasteland your opponents into oblivion, if you have abrupt decay, so Psychic Frog backed by counter magic is never a thing. Like, that's good. If you have a bunch of threats, like this is a 19 threat deck, then getting scammed matters less. But, like, this is not necessarily the grief killer deck or anything. Please remember that our opponent did mulligan to 5 in both games and never saw any of the entomb side of the deck that would have been probably going over the top of what I was doing, especially if they can play around days. So yeah, shaky thumbs up. Deck is okay. Maybe this isn't the time for it. But if you're ready to Deeproot Wayfinder your way to victory and wasteland your opponents, please consider checking out TOA Magic, promo code ThrabenU if you need any cards. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!